Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm in a very, very unfortunate position because I've been asked to tell you a few words about something mysterious called Enigma Museum. The reason why I feel being in a very uncomfortable position is the fact that I don't think I will be talking about the history of German ciphering machine, or there are no attempts of commemorating the German ciphering machine I know about. And moreover, I don't think that we are working on the creation of something resembling a real museum, where dust-covered artifacts rest under cover of glass with some very scientific and very boring descriptions. No. Let's forget about the title of this presentation and let's get to the real business. What we are thinking about the commemorating is a history of the three guys, of those guys who definitely pushed cryptology on a new track, leading to the present situation when cryptology is nothing else but an area of the applied math. And the achievements that somehow permitted shortening of the World War II by several years. And considering that each and every year of World War II cost about 10 millions of lives, you may realize the effect of their work. And moreover, we are not going to create the institution that's somehow mind-numbing. On the contrary, we are thinking about the institution that will be a mind-opener. And therefore, we will not be talking about Enigma Museum. We will be talking about Centrum Szyfrów imienia Mariana, Rejewskiego, Jerzego Różyckiego and Henryka Zygalskiego. Rejewski, Różycki and Zygalski Cipher Center. But I would like to outline for you the story leading to that idea and the current stage of the organization of the center. It all started over 10 years ago when, with a group of people here in Poznań, we started to think about a monument in memory of Rejewski, Różycki and Zygalski. And here you can see a copy of the newspaper from Poznań presenting the designs in a contest for the future monument. Excuse me for a moment. Some of you might have devoted an hour or two for a visit to St. Martin Street in Poznań and know that this is a final design, more or less, that was inaugurated in 2007. But there were more proposals, most of them of quite different class, let's say so politely. Soon after the publication of this newspaper, the spectators in St. Martin Street were watching a scene which made them convinced that they are watching filming of the new episode of Monty Python sketch. A group of people was running around with a wooden model of the future monument. Oh, here you've got them. It was a funny story, and I do not wonder that it was interpreted as a Monty Python sketch. But it served the purpose. We were able to find a location for the monument which fits optically best. And not only optically, because this monument was situated in a place which is most closely linked with the history of the codebreakers. That building you see in the left hand of the picture is a ex-imperial castle in Poznań, which in an interwar period served as a headquarters of the University of Poznań, and it housed, among the others, also the mathematical faculty. So the codebreakers were learning their future profession right in that building. And that building, on the right hand of the picture, I will be talking about it later on, but it's a place where they were running the apprenticeship period of their code-breaking activities. We will get back to that building later on. They must have passed tens or hundreds times through that place where now a monument in their memory is positioned. This is the act of laying the foundation act for the new monument. But soon after that ceremony, we could finally get from the theory to the practice, and we were installing a new monument in its final place. Okay, that's a ceremony of the inauguration of the monument, November 10th, 2007. Very spectacular ceremony, and here it was. Here was the new monument, with a group of people gathered around, thinking about, fine, we've got the monument, what now? What could we do next? And we realized that the monument in isolation does not tell the whole story. That would be natural to have some explanation, to have some background in the form of the center located somewhere nearby, which would tell the whole story. And that was the beginning of another adventure, which is still incomplete. But what happened in the meantime was also very spectacular and very heartbreaking in some instances. This coffin, you can see at the altar, holds the remains of Maksymilian Ciężki, deputy commander of the Polish Cipher Bureau. He passed away in 1951 in Cornwall, alone, neglected by almost everyone. After a very unfortunate argument with his own son, who tried to convince father to return to Poland. But Ciężki knew that for him, return to Poland means death. He never ever returned to his native country. He was buried in 1951 at some cemetery in Cornwall, and we've been very fortunate to be able to bring back his ashes to his native town, Szamotuły. Note please that on the left hand there is a column of soldiers wearing the colors of the insurgent army from the so-called Wielkopolski uprising. Wielkopolski uprising, that was an insurgency that liberated that part of Poland from the German rule in 1918. And Maksymilian Ciężki was also in that insurgent army. He served as a radio officer. On the right hand, you have a column of soldiers wearing the colors of the Polish interwar period army. Why? Because Ciężki was also a soldier of the campaign in 1939. Therefore, two groups reenacting the history were involved in that ceremony of bringing his ashes back to the native town. Here we've got several pictures from that really touching ceremony. I must say that I was deeply impressed when, among the crowd gathered at the cemetery during the ceremony, I've heard someone very young, talking about Maksymilian Ciężki as our Max. Szamotuły received their own hero. And I must say with a real pride, Maksymilian Ciężki is now a very popular person, and his history is well known in his native town. On the very same day, a modest monument in his memory was inaugurated at one of the squares at his native town. And again, a soldier in the uniform of the Wielkopolska uprising. 2 years later, we did the justice to his best colleague and best friend, Colonel Guido Karol Langer, commanding officer of the Polish pre-war Cipher Bureau. That's a picture from the ceremony of exhumation of his remains at the Wells Hill Cemetery in the Scottish Perth. He was demobilized in 1948, and an officer who was wearing the uniform from the age of 17 years for the first time was wearing civilian clothes. That was something absolutely unacceptable for him. And he died only 3 months after his demobilization in far, far away Scotland. Fortunately, there were people who were remembering his services and took care about return of his ashes to his native town of Cieszyn in the southern Poland. And again, you have some pictures from a burial ceremony. And finally, his grave, contemporary grave, among his own people, not in faraway Scotland. In the meantime, the academic community of Poznań was celebrating this history in their own way. The mathematical faculty of the Poznań University decided to start a series of regular lectures in memory of Rejewski, Różycki, and Zygalski. Participants on those lectures, with two important exceptions, which I will mention soon, are the outstanding scientists in mathematics or the computer science. Here you could see for a moment Clifford Cox, the real inventor of public key cryptography, which was a host to that lectures this year. And the remaining ones are the names which probably most of you can somehow associate with achievements in the fields of mathematics and computer science. And the two exceptions happen to be here with you. It's myself and Dermot. Another area of activity surrounding the Enigma story here in Poznań was an attempt to somehow spark interest in cryptology and in the history of cryptology among the younger people. Therefore, a group of enthusiasts in this town organized and is still organizing a series of so-called urban games for young people. And during those urban games, the teams of the young people are running through the town searching for some hidden artifacts. And usually the scenario is very simple. You have two options. Either you are a good runner. Alan Turing was a good runner, wasn't he? Or you are a good codebreaker, because you receive a hint. Where could you find that something you are looking for, but that hint is enciphered? If you are able to decipher it, you'll spare a couple of hours of running through the town. With a real satisfaction, I could say that so far the game is won by the teams able to decipher the message, not by runners. But running is also very exciting, and therefore those games enjoy an enormous popularity with hundreds of youngsters participating. But the urban games are not all. The regional government organized an exhibition, Enigma, Decipher History. That's an exhibition presenting the whole and undistorted history of Enigma breaking. And here on that picture, you see it on the place where it was presented first. It's a European Parliament in Brussels. And since then, the same exhibition, or its copies, because we have already several language versions of these exhibitions, have been presented in tens of various locations all over the world. Here you can see it in Holland, in UK, and here you've got a map, which, by the way, is very obsolete. It does not include many, many locations where one of those exhibitions has been presented. Now we should expand this map because currently one of the copies is traveling through Near East, being presented in places like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and so on and so on. It's a funny part of history, watching the reactions of people in the exotic countries to that history. It's something completely unknown, and I'm very glad that this exhibition, or those exhibitions, one must say, are bridging the gap between the historical truth and the popular imagination. For a number of years, as a complement to the urban games, the same group of people is organizing the internet contest for the young codebreakers. It appears in two editions, in Polish language editions, which is called Łamacze Szyfrów, and the international edition, which is called Codebreakers EU. Within that context, youngsters are cracking real ciphers. And I would like to share with you some experience that appealed most to my mind. One of the editions required active participation over a period of 7 weeks, because each and every week a new lecture was published on the internet, and after that lecture a challenge for a given stage of the competition. 80% of teams which decided to participate in the game reached the final stage. 80%. I think that there are no other areas of our activities that the youngsters are able to display such a determination. Moreover, after the competition was over, we've received a couple of emails. Dear organizers, we know that the prizes have already been distributed, that the competition is over, but we kindly ask you not to switch out the servers of the competition because we would like to complete the job. Youngsters are wonderful when presented the proper challenge. So, that's the scope of the game here in Poland, and here more international perspective. That is quite an interesting experience to receive a letter from Vietnam or Thailand. we didn't know anything about the Polish codebreakers. And that's not our job, but I decided to mention it because it's something important. You might know that there exists an international organization of electrical engineers, IEEE. That organization awards so-called milestones for particular achievements in the area of engineering or computing. And 4 years ago, IEEE decided to award one of its milestones to the Polish codebreakers. And here you have a plaque which was installed for the purpose in front of the Mathematics Institute of Polish Academy of Sciences in Warsaw. Why in Warsaw? I don't know. We are also trying to recreate the history. And here you see a copy of the famous Rejewski bomb. It's a mock-up, I will tell you. It's only pretending to be a Rejewski bomb. That was the order. We planned to install a fully functional and historically true reconstruction. We've been asked to reduce our ambitions a bit. Okay. That recreation of Rejewski bomb was inaugurated early this year in Blashley Park, in Hut 11, the new exhibition at Hut 11, presenting the history of the Turing bomb. But I had a personal pleasure of introducing the device to His Royal Highness Duke of Kent. Real satisfaction in realizing that he was really surprised that the Poles had a bomb a couple of years before the British.
He looks rather like
Okay, now we are nearing the real goal of our story, the Enigma or Cipher Center. This is a harbinger of this center. We've decided that public must be somehow accustomed to the new idea, to the new institution before it starts its operation. Therefore, if you take a walk to the castle in Poznań, you will see in front of that castle a building resembling an Enigma machine with an exhibition inside, but not only exhibition. It's a place where youngsters can learn some basic information about the cryptography, about the code breaking, where they are able to take some challenges. And you will see in a moment a group of young people dedicated to one of those challenges. The same group responsible for running the crypto container organizes also guided tours through Poznań, through the places linked somehow to the history of Enigma, and open lectures for Enigma enthusiasts from all over the world. That crypto container will be working until the inauguration of the Cipher Center itself. Okay, and now we have approached finally our goal. I have the postcard from the early 20th century presenting the building located. Do you remember the picture with the monument? There was a modern building in the background. That modern building stands right in the same place that this German construction was before the World War II. After Poland regained its independence in 1918, the German military command was smoothly converted into the Polish military command, and it was in the basement of this building that the branch office of the Polish Cipher Bureau was organized for the mathematicians to facilitate somehow the process of their converting from mathematicians into code breakers. Rejewski, Zygalski, and Różycki were required to spend 12 hours a week in that branch of the Polish Cipher Bureau breaking the real ciphers. That's another picture presenting the same building. For those of you who know a bit Poznań, that area looks strange. because currently that area is occupied by the castle itself, that building which housed the mathematical faculty. But this is an earlier picture when the castle still did not exist. The building was heavily damaged during the heavy fighting in Poznan in February 1945, and it was decided not to reconstruct it. Instead, they built on the same place an existing building, and that's a photograph from the moment of the construction, which was designed from the ground up as the headquarters of the local committee of the Communist Party. And here you've got the committee of the Communist Party in full glory, with red flag waving over, with Lenin watching the applauding crowd on the front side, and a slogan: "Let's strengthen the unity of all the revolutionaries and progressive powers in their common fight against the forces of reaction and imperialism." Okay. So it was until 1989. With a change of political system in that country, that building was transferred from the Communist Party, which did not exist anymore, to the Poznan University. But the Poznan University decided to construct a new campus outside of town, and therefore that building was for rent. It didn't serve any purpose anymore. So a decision was taken to make our dream come true. That group of people who was gathered around the newly inaugurated monument of the codebreakers could finally start working on the organization of the Cipher Center, presenting the whole story. And it was a decision to house that center in that building. And this is a plan for the center under construction. As I said before, it's not going to be a museum. It's going to be, I would rather call it an adventure center. A center which will be very inclusive and very participatory in its nature. We will offer an opportunity to participate in learning about cryptography, participate in breaking the real ciphers, and those challenges designed for the visitors will be constructed so that they apply to almost every age. Youngsters, grown-ups, and so on and so on. Here we've got a visualization of several of the concepts. You recognize the faces of the code breakers, which will be displayed on the front wall of the building. This is a visualization of the reception hall with something that makes Zygalski sheets come to your mind. Then a cipher tunnel. The recreation of the Rejewski bomb. Another cipher tunnel. Okay, that center is supposed to start its operation in 2020. We hope that we could make it operational by the end of 2019. But I think that a slight delay does not do any harm. We'd better do it fine instead of doing it fast. And that center, by the way, does not invalidate all the efforts I just mentioned. It will act as an initiative center and an organizational support for all those kinds of activities I've been talking before. It will take care of those monuments. It will organize or co-organize the lecture. It will co-organize the urban games. It will take care that the exhibitions which are available reach every point of the globe. It will probably be involved in the reconstruction of the machinery used by the Polish code breakers during the Polish period of their work, and definitely it will organize the new code breaking competitions on the internet. We will gain a new entity to act as a organizational support for all those kinds of activities. Therefore, one might say that this long, lasting for over 10 years, preparation period was not lost. We are able to work out various kinds of the activity that will be perfectly applicable to the center in the design. Thank you very much.
Marek, thank you for that. I have to say that's one of the most inspirational and aspirational talks I've heard for a very long while, and I'm sure all of us who are interested in cryptography and all sorts of
You are all invited to the inauguration.
We do indeed wish you well. I don't know whether anybody has any questions or comments that they'd like to make, other than to wish you the very best with that, but it is an extraordinary vision, and I think a very fitting one, if I might say so. Comments from anyone? Yes, please. The microphone is coming.
So thank you for the wonderful presentation, and you just find the right words to say to this approach. I've got a question and a small remark. My question would be, could you explain to us the monument? Because the first monument for the 3 code breakers, because it is interesting that it has like all the numbers and not only zeros and ones. So I would be interested in what was the decision to take this. The comment is rather going into a slight critique or the question of national remembrance. So if you presented us a Polish history of the Polish phase of the Polish code breakers, Poland. My remark would be to broaden your scheme, because if you look at the history of those code breakers, of the biographies, I mean, you have most of them like born in Germany, worked in England, worked together with France. The other one, like not Rejewski, but exactly, he was born in Russia. Exactly. So I would really question the approach of a national approach. I mean, also the flags of the European Union are missing there, who like giving, I'm sure, a lot of funding for this. So I mean, this is a slight strange way of taking over a history what would not be what is a bigger picture behind this ciphering story, and just narrowing it into an idea of national something. That's really wrong to what the history behind it is.
Well, first of all, start with the monument, because it's an easier question to answer. We've accepted that design because it was simply best among the candidates. But I had a very interesting conversation with son of Jerzy Różycki. He's an artist by education. Before leaving Poland, he completed the Academy of Sciences, the Academy of Arts. And he's, by the way, the good painter until today. In his opinion, this monument would probably be accepted by its heroes. Why? They were mathematicians. That monument represents a very geometric concept. It's very simple in its form. And if your question pertains to the numbers, I'm leaving those numbers to your imagination. Maybe they are hiding some secrets. And there is a number of people who are involved in trying to solve that secret, just as the secret of the famous cryptos was finally solved. Good luck. Polish flag at the monument. Okay. I have to remind you that this monument was inaugurated at the time when Poland was still not a member of the European Union. And it was not financed from the EU funds. But that's just a formal argument. Real argument is completely different. From the very beginning of our efforts, we tried to present this history under the name which finally took the form of the Enigma Relay. Now, we tend to be talking about Enigma Relay, about passing over the token from the nation to the nation. Poles were starting, that's true. They've passed the token to the French, and the French passed over the token to the British, and finally the token was passed over to the Americans. We are not trying to present this history in a purely nationalistic terms. No, I can assure you. In each and every book written on the subject here in Poland, you will find a conclusion. The success was possible only due to the cooperation of all those nations. And we do remember that. However, because the contribution of Poles was forgotten for a very long time, and because it has been consciously or unconsciously distorted for a very long time, we have something to make up, and we will be trying to do the job. Thank you.
I just wonder if the knowledge of where the individuals were born and therefore their presumed nationality at birth may be an artifact of European structure at the date of their birth, bearing in mind the modern borders of Poland that came in 1918, when these men were already born, but apparently in Russia or Germany, albeit it's the same place now known as Poland.
I wanted to stress it.
None of them was born in Poland, because Poland did not exist at the time.
Nobody in Poland was born in Poland.
I think the gentleman there had
a short question for you. Are you familiar with, certainly you are, with this Spy Museum in Berlin? I can recommend you, it's really something like not a museum, but a kind of play with visitor. And there is a place you can, I guess, you can even encrypt something and receive some responses. Something like, perhaps it's even Enigma, I'm not sure. But I was impressed, it's addressed more.
We are not going to match that institution. We are going to surpass it.
I think that might be a very happy point at which to perhaps conclude today. I'd like to thank, I think Dermot slipped out, but it looks as though his jacket is still there. But I would like to thank Marek for this afternoon and for two tremendous presentations. Real delight.